every single existential crisis exists at the same time. And that's a reminder that all these forces are all stemming from the same issues. And if we really want to solve any of those things, we have to challenge the established powers that keep perpetuating it. So that's really what we're trying to do up here. And I can tell you it's not easy to constantly challenge powers like that, but that's something we have to be doing all the time.
You know, something that I wanted to ask you about, Assemblymember Lee, is that we live in a current society right now that actually that teaches us to abandon our own culture, abandon who we are as a people, abandon where we came from. So what is your advice for us as young new leaders to struggle with ourselves and to struggle with these opposing forces that are trying to rob us of the very thing that actually frees us?
I think about it from the point of being part of the LGBTQ community, well, being any person of color too, is for a long time, for almost up until, I would say almost entire American history up until this point, almost essentially, there have only been two routes for people who are oppressed. You either assimilate into the mainstream or you're rejected and you're basically destroyed, right? Now we hold a unique position of power where we can define the mainstream. We choose what the mainstream is now. We have that power. We have that power and the ability to do so. That is our culture that we create rather than subscribing to someone else's culture. You as an individual have so much ability to change that narrative. And it is a historic strategy to always divide and conquer, right? So if you realize that you have more power than you were taught in school or you're taught in society, rather than it always being a top-down structure of a society, we can have a bottom-up. And that's how we achieve real democracy.
In a system where you're constantly surrounded by people telling you not to do it or instill that fear in your heart, what dikes of courage do you build in your life so you won't be paralyzed by that fear?
Yeah, well, I forgot who said this, but it was like courage without fear is just stupidity. So you have to know you're doing something challenging, even if it makes you afraid. Maybe it wasn't stupidity, it seems very harsh, but it was, we do these things because they're afraid, because they're uncomfortable, right? I have the opinion that I got into this job to do things that are challenging and do things that are hard. And there is a culture in politics that, everything, you have to be complacent, everyone has to get along, even if that is not at the best interest of the people. It's always challenging, but when you're going up against established powers, you will always be challenged. You'll always be made to feel afraid because ultimately they're more afraid of losing power than we are afraid to take them on.